Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be back. It's been a really long time, and I'm especially excited today to have a new dear friend of mine. Sandi Lucas is with me today. She's going to talk to us about how she came about creating her own planner. I don't know if you're like me, but you have gone through dozens of different planners, and there's things you love about one and not the other. And I mean, it's just kind of been a search for me. And I just was thrilled to find Sandy's, but I'm even more thrilled to find Sandi because she's just been such a blessing to my life. And I think you're going to find that she is to yours too. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. So, Sandi, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me on your show. I am so honored to be here and to be able to speak just for a few minutes to your special friends in the audience, and just to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am married to my dear husband Luke for almost 35 years, and we have four daughters that are just wonderful girls, and two grandchildren so far. We have one in the oven, and we have a brand new one that was just born on the 29th of December, depending on when this airs. Amazing.
Congratulations. Oh,
Yes.
so
So I'm in love all over again. So people always joke about if I'd known about grandchildren, I'd had them first. But it's just such a blessing, and we love our children. So and their spouses. So an amazing journey to become a grandparent.
Oh, I totally agree. I actually I have two different sets. I have one set where my oldest granddaughter just turned 17 this weekend.
Oh,
Yes, here.
really?
Yes, she was here and we got to celebrate together. And then there's a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old in that family. And then we shift to the other side of the state where we have a 5-year-old, a soon to be 3-year-old, and then one that's due any day. So anyway, I kind of interrupted. Was there anything else that you wanted to share, or shall we just hop right in?
Well, so just a little bit about my career background. And it's relevant as it relates to what we're going to talk about a little bit, is that I came out of the technology industry. So I was very early on in the semiconductor arena, where computers were just becoming kind of mainstream. They were in every home, and I got to do some amazing things in my career and work for a couple of different organizations, Fortune 100 and 200 companies. And so my background, it's kind of been interesting to feel like I needed to be all tech all the time, and it just didn't work with my personality. I always kind of had a lot of angst about that. But how do you be intentional about your life and be organized if you can't get it together? So I always felt like I was struggling a little bit to hold my life together, and with all the girls and juggling everything, I'm sure there's lots of people out there that feel the same way. It's been busy for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine. We had, just two in our household at the time, when I was in the midst of my career. And truly, we talked before we hopped on about I wish I knew then what I know now. I wish that I had invested my time in the word then, like I do
Yes.
now, because it would have been a total game changer for me. And I think for anybody. I mean, that's really the crutch of it all, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was very blessed. Early in my career, I worked for a very strong Christian man who he fasted once a week. He was so orderly in the way that and disciplined in the way that he followed the Lord. And he told me one day, he said, my objective is just to really memorize the Bible.
Mhm.
And I thought, memorize the Bible? Who can do that? It's such a complicated and long book. But as I've grown, and I'll tell a little story about what I do personally to to be in the Word every single day, that really had an impact on me. It wasn't just to read the Bible, but it's to have it so deep in your heart and mind that when you're faced with situations, Scripture comes to mind.
Yes.
And so I was very blessed at a fairly young age, in my early 20s, to hear that.
Yes, that is a blessing. It really is. And honestly, when it comes down to it, a big part of my message is that we can all be that person to someone in our path. I think, it's like we all have our jobs, we all have our priorities in life and all of the things that God gives us for life. But the bottom line is that our real purpose is to point others to him, be that light for others. Which I think is
Right.
really, I love the fact that your light is right behind you as I
Oh,
say that.
that lighthouse. Yes, that
Yes, yes.
amazing picture that God gave us. That's another story. Hopefully, we'll be able to share that,
We will
you
share
know, in
that.
the future.
But
But
but truly, sometimes it's just not, it's how we handle a crisis, right? Um,
right.
yeah.
Well, when we are Christ ambassadors, no matter if we're at home or if we're in the workplace or if we're in the grocery store or if we're at, you know, a big box store somewhere, if we're on the freeway, we are Christ ambassadors. And so I always think about the phrase "Imagio Deo," which is in the image of God. So we are created in the image of God, and every person that we encounter is also Imagio Deo. So as we encounter people that may not be like us or maybe rub us the wrong way or they're irritable, but it's just to remember that Imagio Deo, that they are made in the image of God too. And when you begin to look at people like that, then forgiveness becomes easier. Getting along with others, unity, all of those things become easier when you realize that we're all different. But God places very specific people in our life, sometimes to get us to grow us, to learn a little bit about that, or sometimes just to enhance our walk. And we have a responsibility to look at the world from his perspective and look at the people in our life from his perspective. So
Beautifully stated. Yes, yes. So bring us back. Tell us about this. How the Blaze Planner came about.
oh, oh my word. So people often, and I laugh about this, they say, "Oh, you're so organized. You're just so, you have it." They think I have it all together. Well, truth be told, I am the most unorganized person that you have ever met. I've always said it's so hard to be me. So I suffer from undiagnosed ADD. I'm convinced of it. And one time when I was young, when I was 9 years old, I had a paper route. I was throwing a 72. Some of your audience may not even know what a paper route is, but we had newspapers that we folded and we threw. I had a Stingray bicycle that I would throw papers from. And one day I lost my route book because I was always, distracted and unorganized. And my route supervisor brought my route book to my mother's desk. She worked for the newspaper also. That's kind of how I got the job. And anyway, he threw it on her desk and he said, "The dingbat lady with the dingbat daughter." And I thought, oh my goodness. So that was when I was 9. I won't say exactly how much that is, but it's decades and decades ago. And I still think about that. I still think about that unorganization. So for the last really 40 years, I have studied time management and organization. But it wasn't until recent years, in the last 5 years or so, that I put together the time management and organization with living an intentional, on purpose, God inspired life where I could accomplish God inspired important work for his kingdom. And so getting organized is just one of the things. It's all about having a strategy, and really getting training and getting organized and building those relationships and then doing the thing, making it happen. And so there was a couple of crises in my life when I was younger. I had a situation where I forgot my daughter at a brownie meeting, and yet I was very accomplished in my work, the number one salesperson in my company, and forget my baby. And so I knew I had to get organized. I had to find a tool and a methodology that would work for me. I went through the Slob Sisters, the Fly Lady, the Messi's Manual, and Marie Kondo. Now everybody's talking about, does this spark joy in my life? And so I was just really trying to hold it together. But it wasn't until I got the freedom from the Lord to throw off those things that were not necessary. Maybe we need to undo some things in your life. Maybe this is the year where you don't make new things to do. It's maybe making a list of things not to do. And so, anyway, it was a crisis in my family that really caused me to create my own planner just for myself. And I had a lot of friends that were saying, what is that? What is that you're working with? And I kind of would hide it. And, being in technology, people would say, oh, you got one of those old school planners. And I would hide it and say, yeah, but it works for me. And so, and now it's so funny because all planners are all the rage with the young ones now. So, and I always say it's an and, not an or. I use tech also, and I use the planner that I developed, but it was really about creating a life that blazes for God. And so we've created a special process for that we call here at Blaze the Blaze Lighthouse Process. And it's been an amazing journey, and God is teaching me still every day. So just to reassure folks that I do not have it all together, I'm right there in the journey with you. But hopefully I'll be able to impart, just maybe one or two things that you're listening to today that maybe sparks something in you, and you say, this is what I needed to hear today. This is how I need to organize my life. So anyway, hopefully that'll help.
So I am really excited because you agreed to share that lighthouse process with the people in my mastermind. And so we don't want to give away all of your secrets today because we want people to come back and join us for that masterclass and that session to learn some of the steps on how to do exactly what you're talking about. And one of the things that we talked about when we had the initial conversation about it was the fact that you don't actually have to have the Blaze planner to be able to go through the lighthouse process. Is that correct?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned the masterclass, because folks who come to the masterclass are going to get a special expansive list from me for free. It'll be a free download on looking at the different your life. So whether it's the finance area or the friendship areas or your family or your work or whatever it is, your learning and education, and looking at what does the Bible say about that. So in the planner, we give you a few suggestions, and by no means is it, comprehensive list. But during the master class, we're going to give you a much more expansive list. So typically you can say, oh, I'm good with the Lord in my physical area, but boy, over here in my finances, it's really rough. Or maybe, your family relationships are good, but your health is suffering. Or maybe, whatever it is, typically we find it's because there's some area of your life that you're not God-centered on.
Yeah.
And you can't be God-centered if you don't know what he says about that area. So anyway, without giving too much away, it's a very systematic process, which is so funny for me because I'm not very systematic in my life. I've learned, but it's a struggle. It's a very systematic process that anybody really can be successful with. It's just taking the time and investing the time in looking at what does the word say, and then following the process. And then that's what drives what you put on your calendar. That's what drives what you say yes or no to as far as ministry. That drives what decisions you make, whether to buy something or not. So it's a very peaceful and comforting way to live, because people are always struggling with, how do I find God's will for my life?
Well, and
And
not
so
only
that's the way.
okay, well, I'm
So
excited for this, and I have the planner, but I really haven't. I I went through and listened. One of the beautiful things about the Blaze Planner that Sandy has done that I've never seen with any other. I've had like webinar trainings and things like that, but she actually has videos out there that takes you step by step how to use the planner. And I did that before I even bought it. That was really the thing that drew me in. It was like, oh my goodness, this is detailed on how to use this. I have to be honest, I haven't gone back and listened to all those. I haven't implemented a lot of the things. So I'm really looking forward to the masterclass for that. But I think a couple of things that I really want to make sure that people are hearing is, one, don't believe that lie that you're not organized and you can't live an organized life. I mean, those are things that we can bring into our life at any stage of our life. We don't have to believe that, oh, I'm just harried and that's just the way life is, for one. And for two, I think it's really important that God God doesn't want us to live this anxious, stressed out life that so many of us live these days, and that's, I mean, truly, when it comes right down to it, that's what I am all about, is having people realize that God wants us to be peaceful and fulfilled. He wants us to live in the joy that he created us for. But,
Right.
but he doesn't want us to just sit on the beach and enjoy life for the rest of forever. He wants us to take rest, moments of rest, times of rest, but he wants us to do things that are going to fulfill his purpose and fill us up inside, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're reminding me of the verse in Ephesians that said, we are God's workmanship. So, you've always heard the songs about, he's the potter, I'm the clay. And sometimes we think we have to figure it out and then ask God to bless our plans. But
Yes.
really, it's the opposite way. We are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, right? Which he's prepared in advance for us to do.
Yes.
So we just have to get in on what he's got for us. And the only way to do that is to spend time with him. He's a person, and he's got his word that's, living and active, and it's sharper than any double-edged sword. So I'm excited about, we talk about, and like you said, you don't need the planner. The Bible stands perfectly well all by itself. But if we were to look at the planner and say, the Bible, if the Bible is the textbook, then the planner is the workbook.
Oh, I love that.
So learning what he's already said for us to do, and then working it out day after day after day. That's what it was created for, is
Yeah.
to execute on what he said for us to do.
I love that. And it's funny, I literally just said that in my Bible study group yesterday. I got a really small group and we're going through Revelations right now, which
Oh,
I never thought I could do, because it used to just terror me to open that up and read some of that stuff. But I realize how beautiful it is. But we're going through it, and what's really nice is they allow me to talk about my book. When it's kind of like it's hard not to, and because so much of it comes up into things that I'm talking about in my book. And I said, sometimes it's easy for me to just want to say, I don't even need to write this book because it's all already right here in this Bible. But the reality is people don't just pick it up and start reading it. So hopefully, what I can do with the book is point people to different things that will help them kind of get some of the basis of what they need to start living that peaceful, fulfilled life. Because
right. So yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
yeah, and truly, it's just all like you just said, though. It's all about getting into the Bible, and I get so excited because there's so much in there. I mean, it just answers everything. And we can't
Right.
we can't get it all at once. So I'm excited that the planner will point us back to different aspects of our lives, because truly he wants us. The mastermind is living your faith, and he wants us to do that, not just in our service to the community and all of that, or even with our families. He wants us to do it in every aspect of our lives, and that is really the key that drew me to your planner and your system, is that
Ah,
it's all about living our faith. That's why I think God was like, you know what? These two girls have the same message. We got to get them
right.
together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and really, and if you look at the Bible, um, from Genesis to Revelation, it's all about Christ. And
Right.
so as we get to know him through his word, that's how we become we're always striving to become more like him. And so when you fall in love with the God of the Bible by reading his word, it gets in you. It gets in you. And so it's not even so much that the Bible is an answer book for our lives. It's all about him. And as we get to know him more, our love for him just continues to grow. And out of that motivation is where a life well lived comes from. And so, we all want to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant. But we do that by learning learning more about him and falling in love with him. So,
I really love how you stated that. And it brings the question, there, and maybe I believe that there are times in all of our lives when we, for whatever reason, we aren't looking at Christ. It's like whether we accepted him from a very early age or we come to, for me, it was, I grew up in the church, but I wandered away, and started, trying to fill my life with all of these things that didn't fulfill what I really needed, and which was Christ. But, so that's what the name of the podcast is all about: longing for more, longing for that thing that's going to fulfill us. And it is Jesus. But was there a time in your life when you found yourself longing for more, and whether you did on it right away or?
yes. And a lot of mine was shame based. I just didn't want to feel like if people really knew the real me, they would see me as some sort of an imposter, and I fear that in many of our churches today, before COVID, we were sitting in pews together. I just know that there are a lot of women who feel currently or felt like me, where we weren't enough. If people really knew the real us, that we didn't measure up, that we weren't all that they maybe thought that we were. We're just not so much going through the motions, but desperately wanting more, but not knowing how to get it, and not recognizing that we need to be um, easy on ourselves and know that it's a lifelong journey. We don't just become a Christian and suddenly everything's great. And in fact, it's probably going to be, tough for a while, just trying to feel like you have to catch up and learn and all of that. But even the most seasoned Christian, we all long for more, because this world is not our home, and we're built to long for more, and so I just feel like that. Yes, I was longing for more. I wanted to know where I stood with the Lord, and when I finally realized it was not a workspace, I didn't have to get my life all together and be organized and go to church every week and, volunteer in the children's ministry where they always need help, right? And all those things that you check off, even that doesn't satisfy, So that's why God has to be at the center of everything. And still, I struggle every day just like everybody else. The Romans 8 scenario where I do what I don't want to do and I don't do what I want to do, and all those things that Paul talks about. So just know that this, we got to hang in there together. And I think that somehow, um, until we get authentic with one another, it's going to be hard to be transformed. We want to be authentic, but then we also want to take that next step to be transformed and recognize that God is, he's the author of all the fruits of the Spirit in our life. So,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's this fallacy out there that, like you said, when you become a Christian, you're going to live this perfect life, and it's just not that way. And until we could put Christ in the center of our life, we are just, I mean, and even then, we're always going to mess up. We're always going to make a wrong misstep or something like that. And I mean, that's where the grace comes in. There
right.
is forgiveness. And I think, again, there are people that are looking at Christians from the outside, think, oh, they think they're all that. And it's really more about just knowing that all we have to do is when we do whatever it is that we make that mistake, all we have to do is ask and we are forgiven. But we have to ask, we have to acknowledge that it's wrong. And how do we know if it's wrong if we're not in the word, right?
Absolutely. Well, and as I think about each and every single day, sometimes it's hour by hour. Sometimes you're just trying to get through the next 10 minutes or the next hour. Life comes at you fast. And so that's what I love about understanding that his mercies are new every morning.
Mm.
And so, and the last thing in the Blaze Planner, there's a little square at the bottom of each page that says, who do I need to forgive and love? And so I've had people say that box isn't big enough, but just thinking at the end of the day, who do I need to forgive? How can I make my sleep more restful? And sometimes it's just because we're holding on to something that we need to let go of. And so anyway, it's a daily thing. That's the thing. It's a daily thing.
Which is why we need the planner. We need
Well,
something. We need something to
yes,
keep us on track, because I don't know about you, but I always set off with a new goal with all of the good intentions in the world. And there's always something that pulls me off track. And I have to be able to come back to that and start anew. So I love that the mercies are new every day, because they are.
right. And then having a place, like I said, whether it's a regular notebook or your phone or whatever you're using, having a way to go back to those things that God has called you to do. So you'll go to a retreat or you'll have some kind of an amazing experience, and beyond a shadow of a doubt that God has called you to that.
Yeah.
But then you get away from it, and the further and further you get away, the less and less you remember about what he told you to do. And so having a written record or a typed record or some way to know and some system to go back and review it regularly, that's where the progress happens, is because you haven't just let it drift into oblivion on the 17th of January or whatever it is after a New Year's resolution. So anyway,
You
I
know,
hope that helps.
it does, and you're reminding me that in my coaching, one of the exercises that I've done, and I've done it more in my public speaking and at a retreat that I've had, um, I have people write down their top 5 priorities, and then I have them their go through and just calculate an estimate of how much time they spend on each one of those each week. And that's a very convicting exercise, because we find that we spend very, very little time on the things that we say are the things we value most in life.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's sometimes they're hard, and you haven't stopped long enough to make the decision about what is the very next thing I could do right now to move this forward.
Right.
And so you go do the easy things you can maybe check off quicker. And then the phone rings, and then you get a text, and then, somebody, and so you get off track, and then suddenly it's, oh, I'll do that tomorrow.
But
So,
one of the lessons that I've been learning lately about that phone ring and that text or whatever. So I'm in this book and I love the process and everything, but I get frustrated because there's all these things that I have, and it's like, I need to take this phone call from this family member, or, oh, that's right, I promised so and so I would do, and sometimes I get frustrated, and then it's like, wait a minute, those people, those interruptions are the things I value in life. I can't put them aside to get this other thing done. So it's kind of like, as we talked about before we got online, sometimes it's just accepting that it's in God's timing. And sometimes we're not going to get it done as quickly as we think we were going to, because
right.
life is happening along the way at the same time.
Or maybe you carve out 30 minutes to do the one most important thing early in the day or late in the day. You've carved out that after everyone's asleep, or you've got babies at home. It can be very hard, and trust me, I raised 4 daughters, twins in the middle. And so it was, I get there's not 1 second to do anything. but I am an early riser. That just works for me. And so I get up a long time before others, and I can work on that one main thing
Yeah.
so that I feel, even if I don't get anything else done, I did something, one important thing that I got to check off my list. And then when the interruptions, which are actually people that are brought into our life to love
Right.
and nurture and all that, we're not as irritable about the interruption, because we already feel good about, we got some stuff done. It's just like having your meals planned ahead of time. When your kids are wanting to come in and ask you questions, and if your meals are well planned, it changes everything in your home. Then you're inviting your little one to stand on the stool next to you and stir, because you're not struggling to, oh my gosh, I got to drive through the whatever, drive through again, or I've got a call for delivery, or whatever it is. When your meals are planned, it's amazing how it changes the dynamic of mealtime at your house when you have littles.
Oh, it sounds like we got just a little bit taste of what might be coming.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
let's shift gears for just a minute. You've made a couple of different Bible references, but I was wondering if there was one scripture that might be the one that you really resonate the most with, or that might even be your either annual or life scripture. Is there something that you
my
would
life
share?
was, well, I just love all of the Bible, and I'm sure that others are, like me. At certain times, certain verses are really speaking to you. But I have to say, overall, I love the book of Hebrews. And, Hebrews 11 talks about all the heroes of the faith and how they were just so amazing, but they were imperfect. They were not, perfect people, Moses, David, all those, Abraham, all those heroes of faith. Right before chapter 12, it's kind of our inspiration. It's hard to think about heroes today. Who do we have to really look up to? And we can just look at Hebrews 11, but Hebrews 12 says, um, verses 1 and 2, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us. So God has a race for each and every person. He's already marked it out, but we got to get rid of the things that are holding us back. And the very first part of that, Hebrews 1 says, because we have such a great cloud of witnesses. So it's talking about all those heroes of the faith that came before us. So we need to get to know those people and their struggles and their amazing acts of faith. And then we got to take their example and throw off the things that we have in our life that are holding us back, and then run with perseverance the race that's marked out for us. And so that verse, when all else fails, I know that sometimes when I feel like I'm in a ball of, I heard one time, David Allen, when in his book Getting Things Done, he said that he had a listener or someone that went to one of his seminars come up to him and say that their whole life was an amorphous blob of undoability. Like, it's not doable. I've got too many things to do and not enough time. It's an amorphous blob of undoability. And I think about that all the time. So whenever I have that feeling, that anxiety, the pressure that we have of trying to be all of that, trying to make our highlight reel on Instagram and Facebook awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because so we got to do all that stuff. But really, it's just about throwing off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And then we're free. Then we're free to run the race that he's marked out for us.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you.
So you're welcome. I'm just, it gets me excited. Now I feel, uh, I needed this today, just to be honest with you. Sometimes um, the warrior is a child, so we need to
Well,
take our own advice.
and I think absolutely there's nothing like hearing, it's one thing to have it here, it's another thing to be reminded and actually do it. And I think it also is just a good reminder of why we need good Christian fellowship. We need to have people who walk the walk with us so that when we forget some of these important things, there's somebody there to remind us and bring us back to it. So
And having the accountability, yes, absolutely.
yes, which yes. So this is wonderful. I'm really excited about the masterclass that we have coming up together. Are interested in learning more about you or the Blaze Planner or the process or anything like that, how could they find you? I mean, where are you? Are you on social media? What should they go looking for?
We are probably the best place is just to start with our website, and it's theblazeplanner.com. So you can find all of those videos you were talking about there and more information about the planner. We're still building it. We're a fairly young company, so we're still building a lot into the website, but we're also on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have an academic planner. We haven't talked about this, but we have an academic planner for young people, young girls, and actually we've got some young men using it as well for high school and college age. So we've got an Instagram group called Spark the Blaze. So you can either find us on Instagram for the adults or for the youth. And then we're also on Pinterest. And so you can just go to any of those social media sites. The one thing I do want to mention is we have a special group called the Blaze Nation. If you have a planner and you are wanting to get more information than what we put out just as a regular form of social media, a lot of tips and tools and tricks and
Okay.
engagement in that special group. So it's a group within the Blaze Nation,
Wonderful.
within the Blaze Planner. So
All right. And did I notice that you have a special for our listeners today?
actually, we do have a special. So if you use the code Bona, Bona, you will get a 20% discount on the planner, and it comes with not just the planner itself. You get 365 days of calendar, and then we give you a free erasable pen. And if you haven't used the friction pens, you get one with your planner that are just fantastic.
We are. I love.
So just use that code Bona, Bona, and you'll get a special discount, and you also get free shipping.
That's a heck of a deal. I
Yes,
really I thank you for that. I'm
you
really
bet.
we'll have to get the word out for that. So, um,
Absolutely.
any last thoughts you would like to share with our listeners today as we get ready to wrap this up?
Well, I just want to encourage everyone. Life can be so overwhelming. And when you start to think about it, sometimes we just stay busy because we don't want to really stop and think about the important things. But if we're actually going to even start and then finish the race that he has for us, I would just encourage you to hopefully they can come to your masterclass and hear about the process on how to do that. But I just want to encourage you that God is a God of grace and mercy, and he loves you so, so much. And he loves me so much. You are made in the image of God. Um, one last thing, I had one of our users say that she didn't want to use the habit tracker. She said, I can't face the page.
Mhm.
And I thought that's so funny. It's not after you. The page is not after you. So just be encouraged that his mercies are new every morning. And it's just one step at a time, one day at a time. And God will see you through.
Oh, I love that. And what you're reminding me is as we start this new year, and we all are, all fired up about, I'm not a big resolution person anymore. I those don't work for me, but I do like pick a word for the year, and I do come at a new. There's something about a new year and a renewal and kind of that opportunity to start over. And as I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready that you hear all of this conversation about people that are just, they're bashing the year 2020 and they're, people can't wait to get on with 2021 and everything's going to be different. And it maybe it will and maybe it won't. But the encouragement that I would like to give people is don't focus on the negatives that and some of them I understand. I don't want to take away from the fact that there have been some drastic losses and some huge changes in people's lives. but there's also opportunities that come anytime when we have changes like that in our lives. And I just encourage people to be really diligent about what you, like you said, what do you let go of? Well, we've let go of a lot in 2020. So rather than picking it all up again and trudging up the hill with that big old bag, let's be purposeful about what we're putting back into that bag as we start resuming our life, or as we start
Absolutely. Yes.
really conscious about what that is. In fact, that's my word for the year, is purposeful. I want to, everything I do, I want to do it with intention and with purpose, and let go of those things that are just filling time. So that's just my little last bit of word of encouragement to folks is, let's be intentional this year. Let's make 2021 a fabulous year, even if it's just clearing the slates of all the things that bring us stress, and just resting in the Lord, because that's really, I mean, He wants us to have that peace in our lives, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love your word, purposeful. Mine is
You can borrow it.
infiltrate.
What? Yours is what?
Mine is infiltrate. Infiltrate.
Ooh.
So I am. I feel sort of like a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
We've got to. No matter who it is we encounter, um,
Yeah.
we want them to see Jesus in us.
Well, and that reminds me, that light, the lighthouse that's right behind you. I mean, truly, we're not going to tell the story now. Let's do that in the masterclass.
Okay.
But it is a reminder that that's what God calls us to be, is that light for all those that are living in darkness.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mona, for that word too. Yes, we need to be blazing, right?
We do. We do. I am so grateful that you took the time to be with us and to share your insights into the world and how we can all become organized, amazing, accomplishing people in the world. So thank you so, so much. Just such a blessing to have you as a guest. And I'm looking forward to getting together with you again on be Thursday, January 28th at 11 o'clock Central. So sign up, folks. There'll be a link in the show notes. And if you can't find it, just send me an email or shoot me a message, and we'll get you hooked up. I think it's going to be an hour that will be a blessing to you. So thank you, Sandy. Have an
Thank
amazing.
you, Mona. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
That was such a delightful conversation with Sandy. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. All of the links that she talked about on how to connect with her will be found on my show notes, found at vannajohnson.com, and then the podcast page, and it should be episode 126, depending on when you listen to this. I will also put some of the quotes and Bible references and things there too. But most importantly, there will be a link to register for the masterclass we've talked about in there. I really hope you'll join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It will be held only via Zoom on January 28th at 11 o'clock Central. Will not be available on Facebook, and it will only be available to people who are a part of the actual mastermind on recording if you're not able to make it that particular day. So I hope that you will make the time to be there, because it's really going to be a great training. I'm excited about that. As well, I just want to apologize a little bit for some of the glitches. It's been a heck of a time trying to get this together. My voice gave out on me. There's something lingering there. I've had technical problems, but we're here. It may not be perfect, but I'm just glad to be back. I've missed sharing with all of you, and I'm really looking forward to being able to be back on a regular basis. In the meantime, I will check in sometime next month, and hopefully in the near future, we'll get this first draft of the book wrapped up, and I can kind of get back to a normal schedule. In the meantime, I just am so grateful that you stopped by. I know how precious your time is. So I hope that you will go, you will be blessed, you will stay safe, and live your more.